Thank you again so much for joining us. I am your productivity ninja, Lindsay Recknell. It is my absolute pleasure to be here with you all today to do a super quick 30-minute session on the benefit of doing a weekly review from a productivity standpoint. I will tell you that this is one of the ingredients in my own secret sauce, my own productivity secret sauce, and so I'm super excited to share this with you today. I will be a bit distracted in the short term as I'm letting folks into the meeting, so I apologize in advance. But we will get started here. So let's start with, which Chihuahua do you feel like today? When we think of connecting with folks, when we think about connecting with each other at work, at home, whatever, sometimes it's nice to start with a little, I don't know, a check-in, a pulse check to see how we're feeling about life. So if you want to share your results in the chat or how you're feeling, which of these Chihuahua faces are resonating with us, resonating with you, excuse me, that would be hilarious to see. I see lots of 7s and 6s. Lots of 7s and 6s. So we're, like tired. Maybe we need a little more coffee. Those of you on the super West Coast, I know it's only 9 o'clock for you. So, you've got some coffee drinking time still to go. If you are not familiar with who we are and what we do here at Productivity Ninja, or pardon me, at Think Productive. As a productivity ninja, my focus is on psychology before technology. So I am here to help support you to be your best at work, at home, from a productivity standpoint, but using the tools and technology to be able to do that. Since 2009, we've been challenging people's thinking. We've been inspiring and equipping people to really change the way that they work for the better. We have real results for your team, like higher productivity, lower stress, creating higher performing teams, lots more creativity, innovation, and honestly, a healthier relationship with work and creating a better place to work. We are all about inspiring and equipping people and organizations to make space for what matters. And that's what you're all here to do today, is some quick takeaways around the weekly review process and how you can make that into one of those secret sauce items, one of those opportunities to make space for actually what matters. If you are not super familiar with our productivity ninjas, we have 9. So you can see all 9 of them here. Today, we are going to be talking about the preparedness ninja, as well as some of the elements of the agility and ruthlessness ninja. Really, all 9 of our ninjas are going to come into play here, but we'll really focus on the preparedness ninja, as well as ruthlessness and agility. If you have questions as we go along, please absolutely use the chat. I will try to pay attention to it so that I can answer all of your questions, but let's make this session as interactive as possible. Otherwise, we have 30 minutes of me talking at you, and nobody needs that. All right, so we have our 9 productivity ninjas, as I mentioned. We also have something that we call the cord productivity model. So our cord model is foundational to how we operate at Think Productive. We want to collect as much information as we can. We want to organize it all. We want to review, and then we want to action. The planning and organization up front is super, super key to most of the concepts that we teach in as productivity ninjas. The area of the cord model that we're going to talk through today is the review section, the weekly review as a tool for better productivity. Why? Why does this matter? What is a weekly review? So this is this opportunity where you can really do some focused, concentrated thinking. In some of our workshops, we talk about the concept of boss mode versus worker mode. So most of us in our career, we've really focused on worker mode. This is task-oriented, bum in seats, do the job, check things off lists, things like that. And most of us still operate in that way in our day-to-day jobs. We have to, right? We still have things that we have to accomplish. But there's also this boss mode, this thinker mode. We are knowledge workers. Many of us are knowledge workers. And when we have time and we set aside time for concentrated thinking, we can really get into that boss mode, that strategic thinking, that planning kind of thinking. So that's why this weekly review is so important, is so that we can get into that boss mode. Maybe this review is going to take you 1 to 2 hours if you really do it well, if you really use it as the productivity strategy that it can be. The first time or the first few times as you get into it and you get comfortable and you have all the resources that you need, it might take a little bit longer, but pretty soon it'll just become a habit. It'll just become second nature. In fact, something that I really look forward to doing every week. It really honestly sets my week up for success. So just consider how much time it might take you, a little bit longer at the beginning than it does, and or than it will as you get super familiar and super comfortable with it. This is honestly the opportunity to stay in control. If we think about the things, so much of our lives, of our work is outside of our control. Other people's demands on us, other people's emergencies becoming our problem. This is an opportunity where you can get a sense of agency, a sense of control over your own sort of work destiny or your life destiny, honestly, especially if you have other people depending on you being organized and you being productive. This opportunity to really get that sense of agency and focus on the things you can control. And honestly, it is critical for Zen like ninja, for being that person who is calm, cool, and collected. The emotional regulation happens when you are doing your weekly review on the regular, and you can really get that sense of control. And honestly, productivity is super heightened when you can spend the time ahead of your week planning it out. Anybody have any questions about that? Is that I can't be more clear on how important this is from that perspective of setting you up for success. Okay, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them into the chat. I'd like to introduce to you the concept of agility. It's a word that we know, I'm sure. If we're agile, it's how we can move from our short-term thinking into our longer-term thinking. I love this picture because it really illustrates how when we're so focused on short-term activities, on the things in front of us, when we're being reactive instead of proactive, we can miss the bigger picture, right? This person here is so focused on her leaf cleaning activity that she's missing the tornado behind her. So if we can be agile and stop and spend this focused, concentrated effort, it will stop us from missing the big picture. It'll help us get out of being stuck in the doing and help us get into that opportunity to see the bigger picture, see the things that are going on, the things that have a big impact. Make sense? I love this picture. I just think it's hilarious. All right. In so much of our training, we talk about this second brain, this concept of a second brain. Again, it's a way to use your first brain, your actual brain resources in a more efficient way. When we talk about a second brain, we are talking about things like pen and paper, notebooks. Oh, you can't see, but I have a notebook that I use as my second brain, the place where I put my notes, my schedules, my to-dos, all of that stuff. Maybe your second brain is technology. Maybe it's apps like Asana or Outlook Task Manager or Monday or Trello or any of those electronic systems that are productivity tools that track tasks and critical path and things like that. Trust your second brain, use it. When you can depend on it for its reliability, you can stop worrying about what you're forgetting. You can stop worrying about what you're missing. Creating that trust in your second brain honestly gives you back time and space in your mind. It helps with memory because now you're not overwhelmed and fuss about everything that's happening for you. You can trust that you've got it. You spent this weekly review time and wrote it down in your notebook or put it into your app, so you were already confident that you're not missing stuff. So you can stop thinking about it. which leads to greater intelligence and decision-making power, all of that. And your intuition actually comes back in play as well when your second brain, when you feel like your second brain is the place that has the stuff, you can depend on your intuition, you can depend on your memory in a stronger way because it's not clouded by all that noise of worry. It honestly will save you time and reduce your stress when you can use your second brain really, really effectively. So, when we get into the weekly review, we have here at Think Productive, we have a checklist that I'll share with you actually right now. Let me get my folder structure here, and I will share this checklist with you. Come on. I'll share this checklist with you in the chat. And also, I know that Barbara will send this email out or send the checklist out to you in an email as well, so that you can use it when you start to do your own weekly review. Checklists are brilliant. I'm sure many of you use checklists. If you show me hands, who likes to use checklists? But this weekly review checklist is, again, this can be part of your second brain. This can be a process to follow as part of your weekly review steps. As you can see, there's 5 stages in this, which is why we say that this can take an hour or 2 hours if you really do it comprehensively, if you really do it right. So I'm going to take you through each of these 5 stages and we'll dive a little bit deeper, but go ahead and open the checklist on your screen or take a picture if that's helpful for you. But let's get into stage number 1. So this is getting your inputs back to 0. I don't know which kind of person you are on your phone or on your device. Are you someone who has all of the notifications turned on? You have all of the notifications showing that you have, thousands of unread emails and X amount of unread messages, and your LinkedIn notifications are on, and your Teams messages notifications are on, and all of that? Or are you someone who doesn't put notifications on at all? I'm the latter. I don't have notifications on my phone, generally speaking. And I use this stage time to check all of my notifications, to answer any emails that I need to answer, to make sure that all the messages I've read and responded to if I need to, that all my Teams messages are answered, and to reset all of those notifications back to 0. This is the opportunity to look back on any actions from the week before. Have you done them? Do you need to transfer them to this week's action list? This is like that reset. This is that can we get to a place where it feels good to start? That makes sense? Any questions or thoughts about that? Okay, so once we're reset back to 0, then we're going to look back on the following week. So this is where we're literally getting our work bag organized for the week. Have you left your lunch kit in there from Friday? Is there any paperwork that you need to address? Are there permission slips that you need to sign for your kids? Is there any mail that you haven't opened from the week? Are there any receipts that you've gathered from the week that you need to process, take pictures of, upload into your accounting system? I don't know. This is the opportunity to follow up on all those things that maybe you didn't take care of at the end of the previous week. Look back at your calendar. For me, I have to do a timesheet every week, and so I look back at my calendar to do my timesheet, but it's also the opportunity to see who I met with, remind myself who I met with. Are there any actions or follow-ups from there? That I haven't taken care of yet? Do I need to move those actions to this week's action items list, to this week's to-do list? Are there any meetings that I hosted or was part of, and that there's action items out of those meetings that I haven't recorded yet because of, the nature of back-to-back meetings? I'm sure that doesn't resonate with any of you. But sometimes I get so busy during the week that I forget to record the actions or the to-do items, the to-do list items. So this is the opportunity to refresh my memory and write down those to-dos that have to be done this week as well. Yeah? Okay. Stage 3, this is where I get my second brain up to date. So for me, this looks like writing out my schedule for the week. I'm going to drop my dogs off at day school at this time. I'm going to go to a client site at this time. I have to have an appointment at this time. I'm having a lunch break from this time. I'm going to a gym this time. I've got an event. I literally, depends on the day, but I can get down to the 15-minute increments sometimes. And the reason that I do this is because it's not routine, right? My weeks, I can't find a good routine in my week sometimes. And so I want to make sure that I can fit in everything that's important to me. And so I literally mark by day, I mark out where I need to be when, so that again, I don't have to think about it. Every morning I can just look at the schedule for the day and see where I need to be and when I need to be there. It also is helpful for the people in my life that are supporting me in drop off or pickup or event management or something like that. It gives me an opportunity to remind myself, who do I need to connect with? What do I need to do? How much lead time do we have? That kind of thing. So for me, scheduling into putting my schedule into my second brain is key. Also, this is looking at your to-do list. You've added things to the to-do list, but looking at that to-do list to see if there's anything you can cross off. Did you do some things that you don't need to do anymore? Did you do some things, or have some things just gone away? Did you ignore them long enough that now you don't have to do them anymore? I don't know, that happens. Or are there some things that have come to mind that you need to add to the list? As you've looked at your calendar, are there things that you need to start thinking about, even far in advance? Do you need to add those things to your to-do list? If you've done one of our courses, which is getting your inbox to zero, you'll know that one of the strategies is that we organize our inbox with 3 folders. The waiting and action folders are 2 of those folders. So one of the things that we teach is, as you triage your inbox, you can put some emails that you're waiting for responses on into this at waiting folder. It's just a way so that you can then check during this weekly review if there's anything you're still waiting on from somebody else. It's the reminder of checking in with folks. This waiting folder becomes your second brain. I don't know how often this happens to you, but it happens to me all the time, where I send an email asking for something, asking someone to take an action, and then I forget to follow up, or I forget that I've asked them, or I forget that I'm waiting for it still. And so using this at waiting folder becomes really, really key and an essential part of my second brain, as the place I just know I can go and I can be confident that everybody I'm waiting for is still sitting in that folder. Similarly, with the at action folder, as I'm triaging my inbox, I put things that I need to action into that folder. So I can forget that I have to do these things, because I know I can go into that action folder and take out the action. So during the weekly review, you can review that action folder, see what's still in there, use it to plan out the week, what you need to do, when you need to do it. And then if you're a project manager, if you're managing initiatives as part of your job, take a look at your project list. Especially if you're a project manager, a formal project manager, you probably have, your plan, your critical path. What do you need to do this week to move those things forward? Even if you're not a project manager, I'm sure you have initiatives and bigger projects that you're working on where you need to tackle some little things throughout the week to move those projects forward, to meet those deadlines. This is the opportunity to look at each of those projects or initiatives specifically and add this week's tasks to the to-do list. Any questions or thoughts about that? Make sense? Yeah. Okay. So now we've done the administration from last week. We looked at last week to see what's coming up. We're looking at what's present, updating our second brain, whether it's your notebook, whether it's your electronic to-do list, whether it's your team's task manager, who's to know? However you're managing your second brain, it's up to date. And now we're going to look forward. So we've talked about this week, but what needs to be done in the future? What could be my priorities next week? Is there anything that I have in my priorities from next week that can be moved to this week? Are there preparations for upcoming meetings that you need to take care of? Presentations like this. I need weeks to prepare for something like this, and so I've put those in my second brain weeks in advance, so I know, the deadline is 2 weeks from now. What do I need to do? 1 week from now, what do I need to do this week to make sure I'm prepared for that? Looking forward. Um, are there people you need to contact? Are there meetings you need to set up? Are there critical path items that are coming up that in your at waiting folder that you haven't heard responses on yet, and you're nervous about when those folks are going to get their job done so that you can take action on the accountabilities that you have? Are there any of those people you need to follow up with? Are there any critical path items outside your control that are affecting the things you can control? This is the opportunity to look forward at some of those things and get ahead of them, be proactive to get ahead of those. So we're looking forward as part of our weekly review. In each of these stages, consider what's most important. I don't know if you've watched the relatively old school now, but there's a video of a professor who talks about this concept of the big rocks. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend looking it up on YouTube. But the concept is, if we take care of the big rocks first, so if we put, in this analogy, if we put these big rocks into this bucket, if we take care of the big rocks first, we know they'll all fit in the bucket, right? And then we consider, what are these medium-sized rocks, or what are these priority items, but not as impactful, maybe not as urgent or important. So what are those medium-sized rock items that we need to fit in as well? So we put those medium-sized rocks after we prioritize the big rocks and making sure that we can get those big rocks done. And then we know that there's tons of inconsequential tasks in our day. Work-related, personal related. We know there is so many things that can steal our attention during the day. That's what's represented by the sand. What are those task items that you can use to fill in any gaps in your day? So if your big rocks, if you have an 8-hour day and your big rocks are taking you 6 hours, your medium rocks, maybe those things cumulatively take you an hour. So now you've got 7 out of your 8 hours. You probably got 5, 10, 15 minutes here and there between meetings, between projects, things like that, where you can put some of these sand type items, these smaller type things. You can fit some of those smaller type items. So maybe you're creating in your second brain, you're creating lists of big rocks, medium-sized tasks, and these smaller sand style tasks that you can then go to each of those lists depending on your capacity, depending on how much time you have, and cross some of those things off list, but by priority. Does that make sense? So prioritizing your tasks items by sort of level of importance, priority, urgent, urgently needing to be completed. And then I would say stage 5, most important of all of the stages. Planning your week based on your energy levels, planning your week based on your meeting schedule and where you can be ruthless and maybe cancel some meetings or not go to meetings or delegate some meetings. Having thought conversations with yourself about when and where you're going to be at your best, and therefore when and where to accomplish some of the bigger tasks. Some questions that you can think about, what can you be ruthless about? Where can you leverage your ruthlessness ninja, and renegotiate some of your commitments for the week? If you have a recurring meeting in your calendar that you haven't found a whole bunch of value in the past, could you delegate that? Could you maybe just not go? Could you cancel that meeting in your calendar? Where can you be ruthless in your time and your energy management? Are there things on your task list that you've been putting off, that you just don't want to do, that you are resistant about? Think about ways that you can overcome that. When do you need to do those? When you're at your best. What have been your bright and dark spots for the week? What are the things you're grateful for? Maybe you make some notes about that. You think through that. What are those bright and dark spots of the next week, and how can you maximize more of those bright spots and maybe minimize some of those dark spots? And then, are you finding time for the people and things you love outside of work? Are you prioritizing your relationships that are important to you, the activities and hobbies that are really important to you? When we're thinking about ninja ruthlessness as part of stage 5, this is that 80-20 rule. Uh, spend 80% of your time doing the things that matter, and sort of the 20% of their time will take care of itself, right? Focus on what matters 80% of the time. Use this weekly review process to save you time, because that is what it's all about. Productivity is making space for what matters. So when you do this weekly review, when you spend your 1 or 2 hours at the beginning of the week, you can honestly get back so many hours in the rest of the week, whether it's just from spinning and overwhelm in your mind because now you've used your second brain, or you've been ruthless and gotten rid of some of the meetings in your calendar. You prioritize the big rocks so that you are focused and you don't have to spend a few minutes or hours at the beginning of every day deciding how to focus your time today. You've already done that work. It's already there. When you can find and make this habit and routine, your weekly review will honestly be so successful. So here's my takeaway for you today. Take a snapshot of this, take a picture of this, write some notes about this. When are you going to do your weekly review? Like, schedule it into your calendar. I do mine Sunday afternoons as I'm doing my meal prep. Maybe you do it Monday mornings. Some folks do it Friday afternoons, getting ready for the next week. Think about when you're going to be at your best from an energy perspective, when you can be the most proactive. Schedule it for that time. Maybe you're going to do it at a coffee shop. What's the good location that's going to reduce distractions? Maybe you do it at your kids' hockey game while you're waiting for them to get changed. I don't know. Think about some locations that would work for you to do this weekly review. What do you need? Do you need to be offline? Do you need to have your notebook? Do you need to have your calendar and your various email addresses? What do you need to make this weekly review very, very successful? And is there an accountability buddy that can help you with this? Maybe you do this on a Monday morning virtually with a colleague who's working on their weekly review at the same time. I also do that Monday mornings, 9 a.m. I get on a virtual call with a colleague. We do our own work. But it's just a really nice opportunity. We have it in our calendar. We get that weekly review done and out of the way. It's one of the highlights of my week for sure. So that's what I'd like to leave you with today is take action. Figure out where you're going to do this, what will work. If you already do these weekly reviews in some form, have I shared with you some new ideas on how you can really elevate the productivity during that time? And if you loved this session and the ideas that you've heard today, maybe you want to come to our 6-week Ninja course. Starts next Tuesday, April 1st. You'll learn this plus all sorts of other really tactical, practical strategies to really increase your productivity game. You too can be a productivity ninja with our 6 weeks to Ninja course. So go ahead and scan that QR code. It starts on Tuesday, April 1st, and I'd love to see you there. If that day doesn't work for you, we have lots of programming upcoming. If you'd like to be notified, please go ahead and sign up for our newsletter. You'll get upcoming discounts as well, secret discounts on public courses. You'll know about these upcoming webinars. So go ahead and scan that QR code. And I would love to hear your feedback of this session, of anything that you've heard in any of the Productivity Ninja courses. Please provide some feedback to us. That would be super helpful. There's also, when you provide feedback, you get access to some extra stuff. You don't get access to the academy, but you will get access to information about upcoming Ninja Skill Boosters and hear about special offers. That was fast. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love to keep in touch with you. There's my email address. Connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with Think Productive on LinkedIn. We share lots of productivity tips all the time. Thank you so much for being here. It's a real pleasure to get to know you all. And I look forward to seeing you in another Ninja Skill Booster. Take care, everyone.